Hello, and thank you very much for having me. My presentation today is These Points of Data Make a Beautiful Line, How Data Visualization Drives Actionable Cybersecurity Insights at Allstate. And I've got to say, this presentation title has everything. Presentation itself, maybe not so much, but the title has it. So we've got Allstate, Fortune 100 company. We've got cybersecurity, and everybody right now loves cybersecurity. We've got some really cool buzzwords, including data visualization, which to my mind is the coolest buzzword of them all. I've even got a pop culture reference that is slightly more niche and out of date than I'd like to admit. And that's about it. The problems start when we get to this guy. This is me, and let's get that out of the way first. I'm Robert Chappell, and I've been with Allstate since about 2011. I've worked in various roles. I started with Tableau in 2014 and was one of the Allstate's early adopters of the technology. And for the last few years, I've been running DCAT, which is the Deputy CISO's analytics team, and more on them further on. Before joining Allstate, I spent about 20 years as a commercial field archaeologist. And if you've got some ideas about what that job would look like, you might be thinking that, but it's actually that. And when people ask the question, how do you go from archaeology to data visualization at somewhere like Allstate, it's very simple. I am passionately committed to not starving to death, because the bottom fell out of the archaeology world and I needed a new job, and very, very kindly, Allstate took me in, and I've been there since. The other part I'd say to that is that if I was to give you a good definition of what archaeology is really about, it's about, one way or another, finding information, processing it, filtering it, and eventually creating some form of robust, engaging narrative about our past. You know what? It's not very far away from what is a good definition of what good data visualization is about. So that guy out of the way, I have a bit of a thematic agenda today. I'm going to talk a little bit about the historical development of my team and the function we do. Talk about some of the philosophical constants that we bring to this role. We're going to talk about some of the types of work we undertake, a few technical tips and tricks. And if anybody's still online or awake by the end of it, I will attempt to evade your questions. So, first part is Allstate. They are a US insurance giant formed in 1932. They sell insurance everywhere. Clue is in the title, Allstate. And in terms of their presence in Northern Ireland, they came here first in 1999 as Northbrook Technology, eventually changing their name to Allstate Northern Ireland. And as of today, they are the biggest tech employers in Northern Ireland. The next part of this goes forward to 2018, where Allstate decided they were going to implement the BISO role as a Business Information Security Officer. And these are roles that are embedded within individual departments but report centrally into information security. So the point of these jobs these roles is that they are trusted advisors to those departments on all aspects of cybersecurity. And these days we've about 26, 28 of these people across our enterprise. And very quickly into that role, we found that there was a problem. There was data. In fact, the problem was lots and lots of data. And at a very simple level, this is what was happening. You had a system of record. The BISO was downloading a point-in-time.csv file, which doesn't sound particularly bad, except that you remember that there's lots of BISOs, each one doing this. Again, doesn't sound like a bad idea until you realize that they're not all doing it equally. Some are taking raw files, some are attempting to visualize them, some of them are filtering them, enhancing them, augmenting them. And if that doesn't strike you as being a terrible idea, you then have to take into account that Allstate have many, many systems of record. And if any of you have been through this, you will know that when you have multiple reports and multiple visualizations and essentially multiple versions of whatever is truth, you don't have one winner in this. You just end up with a lack of confidence in all of them. And that's where this guy comes in. This is my boss, Keith Lippert. He's the one in the middle. And he is the Deputy CISO, or Deputy Chief Information Security Officer. And he's an Allstate Vice President. And he had a vision that at the centre there would be a team, today called DCAT, the Deputy CISO's Analytics Team, and they would be the ones interacting with the systems of record, doing the cleaning, all these things, the visualization, creating a suite of dashboards that would then be consumed by our BISO stakeholders. And the idea is that some BISOs would need all would need some, and this is essentially the model we're still working with and we still live to. The problem with that, as I have already intimated, is that most of these systems of record were outputting point-of-time reports as .csv files. So we could download that and look at it, and the problem that anybody encountering material like this is that these systems of record aren't designed for reporting, and if they're not really doing that well, they're not designed for driving decision making. So to kind of leverage that as an idea, I start with the statement of, today's number is 13. And this is kind of the first philosophical point that I talk to people about. Okay, today's number is 13, and then the question is that a good number or is it a bad number? And this is where Tableau and my team really can make a difference, because we collect those snapshots on a regular cadence and create dashboards that show the change over time. So to answer your question, is 13 good or bad? Well, if you had your out of compliance widgets dashboard, and a couple of months ago it was over 7,000, and today it's 13, 13 is a really good number. But if you were tracking your critical server vulnerabilities, and 2 months ago there were 2, and today there are 13, 13 isn't as good a number. So you don't get those kind of insights without Tableau, without that time depth. So we started off very, very simply doing exactly what the BISOs were doing, taking that .csv file, taking it out of the system of record. We would take it on a weekly or a monthly cadence for short-term projects, sometimes very important ones. We can actually do that on a daily basis. At the beginning, we were taking those, saving them off onto local machines. Later, we've upgraded to an encrypted team NAS share, where a lot of this is stored centrally. And we would just, everybody does this. You take your .csv file, you put Tableau on top of it. Little kind of technical hint or trick that we use a lot. Where we can, we save off the files as dates in year, month, and day format. It makes them easy to find, they sort automatically, and the other thing that's really cool is that if you use them in a union inside of Tableau, once you look at the path field, you'll find that the whole location, including that file name, comes straight into you as part of that field. Little bit of a judicious use of the custom split tool turns that file name into actual integers. You can turn those integers with the make date function into a real date. So without anything else, you've automatically created your x-axis. You've done half the work of creating something really useful and important with very, very little data. So I want to talk to you about swans. And this is my second philosophical point. After a while, you've been building dashboards for a while. Hopefully you're building trust along the way. And what we found in the past is if you change things too radically, you can destroy that trust very, very easily. So at the beginning, we were working tactically. We needed to get lines and dots on the screen to help out our BISO stakeholders. And we knew that we needed to go past that but we wanted to evolve our ecosystem without destroying the trust that we'd built up. So these days I talk about it as the SWAN principle, where I want our stakeholders to see the glide and not the furious paddling that goes on underneath. So essentially, I want them to see the product, but not the process. And so this is kind of where we started. Everything was interacting with those systems of record, downloading .csv files. And let's be honest, we still do that for quite a lot of stuff. If it's tactical, it's short-term projects, proof of concepts, where it's most important to get a functioning dashboard out there without having to worry about the architecture that goes on behind it. So we still do a lot of that, but we have evolved as we've gone on. We got the opportunity to build and maintain our own Oracle dashboard, our Oracle database, and we're doing a lot of things with a bespoke Python ETL that we call Ouroboros, that takes the .csv files, analyzes them, validates them, and pushes them into our Oracle database. I would point out here that we had the opportunity, by which I mean I insisted, that we name our dashboard something that wasn't just a string of numbers and letters. And I decided that we, in an already male-dominated enterprise, that it should take a moment to commemorate Ada Lovelace, one of the most important female pioneers within modern mathematics and computing. And this caused a bit of a problem because I found out to my cost that when you say Lovelace as a surname, there are two types of people, only one of which think of Ada Lovelace. I'm just throwing that there, make what you will of it. So a lot of our work is done like that. We also have moved on to connecting our systems of record via APIs, and again, using that to push stuff into our database, visualization layer on top of all that. The last piece is some of our systems have moved to ServiceNow, and we're using the inbuilt automation within that. Again, same process, get it into our database, dashboard layer on top of that. This is as it is now. It's constantly evolving. One of the things with this team is that we are always looking for new ways to do this. One of the really great things that Tableau allows us is that power to join data from various sources. So you can join a flat file to a database view that creates new and more powerful visualizations. In all cases, as the ecosystem evolves, we make every effort to hide that from our stakeholders. We want them to see the great and powerful Oz, not the man behind the curtain. Or, to use the terms that I'm happiest with, you want them to see the glide, not the paddling. So let me tell you about some of the stuff that we do. Every enterprise has got some kind of network ID where you are uniquely known on the system. In Allstate, we call them NTIDs, and about 80% of our work comes to us in this way, where somebody comes along and goes, I've got a list of NTIDs, nothing else. And they could be a list of owners of specific account types, responsible DBAs, finding owners, anything like this. So I've got a list of NTIDs, generally in some kind of .csv file. We get a report every month, and is there anything you can do to help us? And we say yes, because we save them off as dates. We drop them into our NAS drive, and then we start bumping other data against it. And one of the things that we do regularly and quite well is we spend a lot of time building good relations with other parts of the enterprise. In this case, finance. So we've got this lovely, in this case, mocked up HR data that was provided to me by ChatGPT. It's not real Allstate data. And we put the two together, and we just in a very simple join like this inside of Tableau. I mentioned before about how you go from the path into a real date, and if you drop that date that you've conjured out of the file names up onto the columns layer or onto the columns shelf, a simple count onto the role shelf, you've immediately got the enterprise timeline of the story that you're trying to tell. You go from that, you drop department onto color, you've got the departmental timeline. One of the things you can start then with all that data, building the detail of what department, what resource, and everything else you've got in this. And the problem with using a union like this is that it brings in everything. And what you really need to drive that decision-making part is just the last set of resources that need to be contacted or need to be remediated. So the other one we use on a regular basis is this very simple level of detail calculation where you get the date to fix on the most recent date. Throw that up onto the filter shelf, set it to true. That big list of everybody just comes down to the short list of the last few people that are out of compliance on this. Those are three very, very simple pieces of visualization, and they make a very simple dashboard when you put them together. But they're very, very powerful because the top left piece, that enterprise timeline, can be used by the deputy CISO to report up to the board. Our BSOs that are allocated usually by department, it can show them their story, how they've driven down change and are driven down our risk. And then that last piece, that really, really important piece, is the list of resources that still need to be accounted for and how we go about that. The point I want to make here is that underlying all this is some really, really simple data with Tableau can very beautifully and very effectively drive action. It can show you your change, and it can assist in driving down your risk. I want to talk about one specific project, and we were asked to partner with a stakeholder in identity and access management. They were doing some really, really good work about vaulting privileged accounts, and we were asked to help tell that story. So they gave us data that wasn't dissimilar to this. There was a list of environments such as Windows, Linux. They had a number of waves that they were working across. So basically every week they would remediate a certain amount of accounts. And we tried visualizing that, and it wasn't really interesting or useful. And so we went back, and a lot of what I'm going to talk about now is just happening simply at the Excel file level. We started thinking about what these meant, and an unremediated and unvaulted password was available 24 hours a day. It was changed every 90 days. Once they were vaulted, they were changed every 8 hours. So what that means is that if somebody cracked one of our passwords, they would have access to that account 24 hours a day for 90 days. That's 2,160 hours versus 8 hours. So we started making some changes to the data set to help them tell that story. We realized that there was a finite number of accounts, so we worked out that in our top one here, there was a baseline of 265 accounts that eventually drilled down or resolved down to zero. At the very beginning, at our baseline, none of these accounts have been remediated. It starts at zero and it goes up to 256. Once you've got that idea, you can start doing the multiplication. Unremediated accounts, each one is multiplied by 2,160, which in this faked example here gives over 500,000 hours of what we describe as attack surface. And as one goes down, the other one goes up, but never in the same amount. So with this really, really simple data set, we started messing around first with a bar chart like this to add those figures together to give us this total attack surface. And one of the ways we thought about envisioning it was to turn it into a funnel. It's a beautiful visual trick. It doubles the x-axis. It's much more visually striking. And people start to see that idea of the very wide resolving down into the very narrow. And in this case, we just changed it into an area chart. And with do a little bit more, you make it fit, you add a few filters, a few labels, you've got the basis of a very powerful storytelling image where you can see that planet-sized attack surface being reduced and reduced and reduced all the way down till it's like something like a needle point. And again, my point here is that these are simple techniques that we use every day. You don't need to be a Tableau Zen Jedi master to do them. And you don't need incredibly complex, wonderful data. This is all done from very, very simple data. In this case, we ended up receiving a CISO 50 award. This is a very prestigious award in the world of identity and access management. And I don't for a second want to say that it was the visualization that won this, but it was the hard work of a lot of our stakeholders and colleagues that won this. But the judges were very clear in their summation of it. It was that the data visualization was integral to that piece of storytelling about showing exactly how much work was done, how it was done, and that big, bold visualization piece to show the attack surface of how it went from planet-sized to needle point. With that, I'm going to say that I have some bad news for you, which is we found to our cost that all our fancy dashboards and all your fancy dashboards mean absolutely nothing if nobody knows about them. So we've been in a position where we've built dashboard after dashboard and then found that nobody used them. And we've had to come across or develop a strategy that helps get these in front of people on a regular basis. It's still in development, but this is what we do at this time. Every time a dashboard is updated, we send out a reminder to our key stakeholders from our DCAT email account with our bespoke messaging, our nice little graphic on top, letting them know what's been updated and where they can find it. I frequently joke with people about the idea of death by dashboard. You start building dashboards and you send out links and suddenly you've got, your stakeholders have got like 20, 25, maybe 30 links to save off. And we, in trying to circumvent that, built what we call Vizier in SharePoint. Viz is the visualization piece, but Vizier is traditionally a trusted advisor. And we use this as a central resource where if there's anything we're building, we place it here so that it's just a links page, but our stakeholders only need to save off that one link that brings them here, and then they have access to everything. The final point in this is with our various stakeholder groups, we run a monthly operating review where we take sometimes live demos, more frequently still images, screenshots as part of a presentation, and we get people to talk about what's happening in certain sets of our core metrics, and repeatedly get those in front of people to maintain and grow that engagement. My key takeaways in all this are not going to be astounding or anything you're not expecting. I would always say start simple, build your trust. Remember that simple data, simple visualizations can be very powerful. And that final piece of our puzzle is that dashboards without communication are pretty much worthless. If there's a key takeaway, it's to let them see the glide and not the paddle. So you want people focusing on your content, on the product, and not the process behind it. If I was to have a supplemental one, it's that not everyone will get your well-meaning reference to inspirational women pioneers in computing, but that's another story. And with that, I'm going to say thank you very, very much for listening.